Hello and welcome everybody to the inaugural episode of the Nerdverse Odyssey. I am one of your hosts, Nico, and joined by these two
Rico.
other guys. Oh, there we go. We got Rico
And Hunter.
and Hunter. Perfect. So this is our second attempt because I'm an idiot and didn't hit the record button. So I'd just like to say that this podcast is going to be raw. Extra raw, not quite Eddie Murphy raw, but raw enough because I don't edit shit. Anybody who's seen my YouTube channel knows that for a fact. All right, Rico, Hunter, introduce yourselves a little bit. Maybe give out your Twitter handles.
I'm Hunter. I am unfortunately related to Nico, so I got roped into this podcast with him. However, I really don't have any social medias other than Facebook because I'm a millennial. So that's about all I got. What about you, Rico?
Oh, well, fortunately, I'm not related to Nico, but I would hope to be related to Hunter because he seems like the most sane one. At least organized chaos was just chaos. But yeah, name is Rico. You can find me on the X handle or Twitter handle, depending on what political party you're on, I guess, at King Goya. 787 King Goya, PR Rico, Coco Suave. You can find me on PlayStation 2. It's the same thing, King Goya. Same with my YouTube channel that I also kind of have. I do weird stuff on. So,
Hold on, did my man just drop his PS2 handle?
hell yeah, man.
D-
Told you, I was born in it.
does it
Raised in it.
does PS2 still even work online? That is a question that I should probably test one of these days.
We can boot up
Oh,
SOCOM and
yeah.
see what happens.
Exactly. All right, Hunter, you want to say anything other than you're trying to be in a 90s pop band?
Well, okay, so here's the thing. NSYNC just dropped their latest single not even 2 months ago, and it's clearly going well for them. So
Mhm.
I took singing lessons for at least 4 or 5 months. I think I'm a shoo-in for this like 90s nostalgia. Let's bring the boy bands back. I'm just young enough to still like have the nice looks for it, but just old enough to for everyone to realize I'm washed up. There's nothing left in the tank here, and I am just in it for the money.
Okay, so maybe we should discuss what this podcast is even about. Um, so we had the bright idea, Rico and I, a couple years back, to do a podcast of us just talking about random nerd shit like comics, movies, an infinite wall of Funko Pops that will one day enslave Rico and turn him into a pop himself. Um, and yes, that's kind of what this is. Fair enough. So that's kind of what this is. Today, though, to have a somewhat of a structure, we are going to be discussing the first 91 issues of Gantz. Just want to double check you boys did finish your homework, did you?
Yes.
Yeah, another extra credit. I went to chapter 100.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I think Hunter said he went over to like 94 or something. So, all right. So, do you guys want to talk about anything like kind of like stuff you're into right now before we get into it, or you just want to go like balls deep right away?
Uh, I mean, so for some movies I watched recently, I watched Scream 6. I don't know if
Oh,
you guys have seen it. I was super excited. It by far and away has the greatest movie poster of all time, with the kill map from each of the movies is set up, but it makes the Scream logo and it maps out each of the murders in all the movies as like a New York City subway train line. It was super cool, and it got me really hyped for the movie just because of the poster alone.
that's kind
Love
of cool.
Scream. However, it had the most unimportant deaths to have ever happened in any like horror movie franchise in a long time. And even then, at the very end, you're like, oh, that dude who was stabbed like 18 times, he's clearly dead. That sucks. He seemed like a good character. And for whatever reason, you just see him being wheeled away by the ambulance at the end of it. And it just upset me to no end. I was so pissed. That death meant nothing, but it lasted 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, but he's gonna be the next killer. That's how this works.
Well, it depends. I mean, I think I left off at 4, so I would imagine the rules that were set by Jamie Kennedy's character that will probably play into it, or are
Oh,
there
there's
no
they're
rules
still in
now?
play. So number 5 was a sequel reboot, where all the characters that existed previously are still there.
Oh, we lost audio.
Is
Yeah, we lost your audio there. I think you unplugged
love it.
yourself.
Back.
Oh, there it
But
goes.
yeah, Billy Loomis's kid is the main character now. It's not Sydney anymore. And so it's people like knowing that she is the first killer's daughter. And so now they want to kill her to continue his tradition, which that one was a lot of fun. It was a really good film. But yeah, number 6 sucked. So I'm hoping they bring it back to number 7.
Okay.
Well,
Wait, I
on
thought
that
you
note,
said
with
you
number
like.
well,
Okay.
he liked the poster.
It was
I
the
don't think he
post.
said you liked the
Ah, so
movie.
you were a fan of the poster,
Yeah.
not the movie. Got it.
Oh yeah, the poster definitely got me into it. I appreciate Scream as a whole, but
Mhm.
like it's definitely in the ranks of GOAT movie posters.
Okay. Okay.
So my
Oh, yes.
well, my question to Hunter then is, what do you feel with Scream 7? Because right now, ah, I don't know the actor's name, but the two girls that played the sister, one got kicked out over some comments. The other
Mhm.
one claims, the one who played Wednesday, that due to scheduling, she's not coming back. So you think that's a positive or a negative thing? Since you
I
said
think it's
six,
negative
number
because they
six,
were good characters. They had good chemistry on screen, and it was a enjoyable core group that they could keep building the franchise around. It was just the writing that sucked for the last movie. Uh, so like the plot was good. The killer was he was well thought out. They brought them into the story really well, of leaving you clues of to know who it was and everything. But it's just the writing sucked, and they didn't want to kill anybody because they know they have to survive off this IP, and to keep doing that, you've got to keep the characters around so people have reason to come back. So if they do another reboot and it's just like number 5, where it was actually enjoyable, I'm down for it.
All right. Playing any games or aside from reading Gantz or read any comics?
No, not really. I want to get into Invincible because I absolutely love the show, and I've watched season 1 at least 6 times now at this point. And I can't wait for the second half of season 2 to come out. But yeah, haven't been reading much lately, at least for comic books. And all I've played lately for games is Fortnite because they're doing
Oh,
the
the OG
OG
map.
season.
Yeah, did you see? They
It's
released
pretty
Peter
enjoyable.
Griffin today, and I think there was somebody else who was in there too. That was like it was a weird choice. I
I
can't
think it's
remember.
the chicken. The
Maybe.
chicken? Because I know bird the word is the emote or something.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. How about you, Rico? Movies, games, anything?
Ah, let's see. As far as games right now, I'm switching between Destiny 2 and Diablo 4. I actually enjoy Diablo 4. I never played none of the Diablos. Um,
You are a minority in this group. That's for sure.
oh yeah, well that's more because of my upbringing, but yeah, Diablo 4 is I think it's great. I play both. What do you call it? As a rogue, I think I like the
Mhm.
rogue the most, but I played a little bit of necro. I'm a sorcerer right now. But due to Thanksgiving and the people I stay with didn't have Wi-Fi, so couldn't really do anything. So hopefully get back to it on that one. So it's a little bit refreshing. Destiny 2 is my game. I came from Halo. Once I went back to PlayStation, I went back to PlayStation. So I'm actually a glutton for punishment on that one. All the drama and everything that's behind it and stuff like that. Movie wise, I got to catch up on some things. Um, but most I've been going back to shows, so different ones.
Okay.
So definitely fan of Community, Burn Notice, Scrubs. Mostly it's just out of action, or definitely a bunch of comedies. Some of the slapstick, some of the stuff that's relatable to my generation. I guess I guess some Generation X, since Hunter said he's a millennial. So,
Yeah, I was 89, he was 91, was it?
There you
Yeah,
wow.
there you go. So yeah,
Okay, so
we're
I'm not gonna mention nothing about age or school then with you guys then. So I'll just say I'm Generation X. That's it.
yeah,
But they
oh,
tell you
all right, X-Pac, don't worry about it. We got you, homie. Uh, all right, all right. For
well,
me,
that's
what was
pretty much
that?
that's it.
That's
No, I
pretty much
said
it.
pretty much
All
that's it.
right. For me, watched aside from reading Gantz, started rereading Battle Royale. Oh yeah, by the way, apparently I'm a huge weeb. Who would have thunk it? Started reading Battle Royale and RoboCop. Actually, so I have I have a lot of RoboCop comics. The movie trade paperback for the original movie that Marvel did back in the I think it was like the late '80s. And then I have Frank Miller's RoboCop 2, and then the RoboCop 3 Last Stand, and there was another one in there. Needless to say, I'm going hard cyberpunk in the past little bit because I am also playing Fortnite and RoboCop. And my character in Fortnite is RoboCop. But no, so what is it? RoboCop. It's not Prime Directives. That was a shitty Canadian movie. Whatever the new Rogue City. That's it. That game is amazing. If you ever want to play a game that makes you feel like a walking tank that just murders bad guys, chef's kiss. And it's kind of a detective action RPG, if that makes sense. Because you have like skill trees, so you're actually like building up your RoboCop in a sense. But yeah, I've been playing that, and Dead Island 2. Don't sleep on Dead Island 2 if you have a PS5. That game is actually really fun. And movie.
How many bad guys have you shot in the dick?
All of them.
RoboCop Rogue City.
That's my challenge run. I am running through the entire game doing nothing but penis shots. I am a subhuman piece of shit, and I know I'm going to hell for that. But it's what needs to be done. It has to be done.
They put the work in to make sure it was glorious death.
They put that animation in there. Apply. I'm gonna do it. But yeah, so there's that. And for movies, I watched I rewatched the Gantz live action movie. Since you guys are both past the point where the first movie ends, I would recommend going and watching it. It is a totally different story. Like, key points happen the same way, but there's a lot less characters, and it's a little more story driven than the action, but it is actually not terrible. Gantz, by the way, don't watch that yet. Big spoilers. That ruins probably one of the best arcs in the book. But that one's pretty good. And I also watched, surprise, surprise, I rewatched RoboCop 1. It's a perfect film, front to back. It's amazing. If anybody who says otherwise, fight me.
I mean, I do really appreciate the fascist commercials that kept playing all throughout this. Really, all three of the films. Good. They're absolutely amazing. They were by far and away the best part of all of those movies.
Oh yeah,
they're the unsung heroes.
Well, that's the thing. Paul Verhoeven. He does that. He did that with Starship Troopers as well, and it worked perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So, I guess that's our weeks. Anything you want to talk about before we jump into the main topic of today? Any comic book, video game, movie news? I would like to throw out one. As all of you may have heard, Snoop's dog was quitting the smoke. He was quitting the smoke. Turns out it was a viral marketing for a smokeless grill, because I don't think that we would be living in a timeline that would actually exist any sort of fallout if Snoop Dogg stopped smoking weed. I'm just saying.
But respectfully, who would believe that? Who would believe that Snoop Dogg, who's done it before, that he's quitting smoking, would quit it? And then I guess kind of like
honestly, like a buddy of mine at work and I were thinking he was probably bringing out his own line of edibles, or it was some sort of viral marketing thing. But yeah, I thought that was just something I thought was hilarious. So wanted to throw that out there. You guys,
honestly, I don't know how you could give it up. I have my Traeger. I would not give it up for the world. It is just absolutely beautiful meat when you're done with it. You cannot fuck it up if you try.
Oh, dude, that's probably next summer I'm buying a Traeger, because I have a Blackstone. Griddles are awesome, but there's nothing beats that Traeger meat.
Yeah, plus like you can get at least 4 pounds of pork loin for like $3.50, almost $4. And compared to every other meat, it's super cheap and it's delicious, so long as you make it on the Traeger and don't like cook it on the stove, because then it gets all dry and
of course
awful.
Now, so for everybody listening, go out there. Those are our sponsors for today. For this video.
They don't know it, but they are.
Hold on, wait. Can you false claim a sponsor? Can we get in trouble for that?
I don't know, but man, you guys did that so perfectly. Like especially Hunter, he was like, with the amount of meat you get and
What
you
was
put
that?
in there,
The
the
checks in the
things you
mail.
do.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, no, the Treggers. It's beautiful.
Two things. One, regardless, I'm going to send him an invoice. Two, there's a mute button. Just throwing that out there for you.
So here's the thing. I haven't tested the system enough. If I hit that mute button, I don't know what breaks.
Oh
So,
no, I love it. It was just. I was like in my head, sitting here. I'm like, are they planning this out? I'm wondering where the joke is coming in. Like, okay, hey, I'm waiting for the punchline, and then I thought to myself, like, I would give Hunter more credit that he can grill. And then when you mentioned you grilled, I'm like, no, Nico doesn't look like he grills. Like, no,
oh, dude, that's cold, man. That's
you don't.
Not
that's
like
like you
that
everyone
just
else who
mustache.
tried to grill.
that's like you just kicked my firstborn. That's horrible. You never tell a man that they can't grill. That is
I
the
didn't say
worst
you
thing.
can grill. Just you and grilling does not. I don't know.
That's fair. That's
Hunter got
fair.
the frost tips for grilling. That's all I know.
True.
Well, he's channeling his inner Guy Fieri. How's your sausage fingers coming along?
I'm working up to it. It's taken some time.
You'll get there.
The high cholesterol hasn't quite kicked in yet, so I imagine as that grows, so will the body and the sausage phalanges.
You're gonna get there. You'll get there one day. Uh, oh, okay. And yeah, like I just wanted to say, like, man, Nerdverse Odyssey can be about anything. You could be a nerd about grilling. You could be a nerd about football. You could be a nerd about pretty much anything. And we just happen to fall into a grilling segment there. Hashtag not sponsored.
So I got something that maybe you ever want to talk about.
Ooh, okay.
Would be Christopher. I think it was Christopher Nolan. Recently, he put out a statement about digital media and owning it. You know, if you purchase a game online, if you purchase a video online, what happens when that stream or that streaming service goes away? And Sony just came out saying that certain media that you purchase are no longer going to be available from
Oh,
now.
yeah.
And you're not offering no refunds or anything. If anybody wants to go watch it, Young Ye, I think it's his name wrong. He did a quick video on it. So, what do you guys feel about that part of the future? Should we go back to our cover stuff? Or what?
So, Hunter, you want to jump in on this first, or you want me to?
Yeah, so this has pretty much been around since digital media became a thing. I remember when I used to work at Blockbuster and we get all the DVDs and you'd have to crack open the case and you get that purple sheet that would come in with it. I think it was Viaplay or something, where you'd enter in the code and you get the digital copy of whatever media you purchased in an instance, because video store. But they went out of business around the same time Blockbuster did, and they gave everyone on their platform 30 days notice and said, you basically just licensed everything through us. You didn't actually own anything, whether you got it through that code or you purchased it on their platform. It now goes away because our servers are going away and we're not going to let you download this media. And so it's kind of expected. People don't pay for physical or digital media these days. Most of the time you'll pay for YouTube Music, you'll pay for Spotify, you'll pay for Netflix. Prime Video comes with Prime for now. That apparently they're going to change that and nobody's going to want to pay for it anymore. But yeah, so it's just kind of expected that you're leasing this property from whomever owns the license to let you borrow it, and it goes away eventually and you're kind of without the bag unless you're hosting your own media servers.
Yeah, not like anybody in this
No,
room
absolutely
would do
not.
that. Never. But no, you actually raise a really good point there, which is why I don't have a media server where I back up my purchased goods. That's why I just like to say first off, for me, big thing is video game preservation. That's why you can't tell over there, but well, you can see the top of it. I got big 32-inch CRT TV because I like to play me some old school video games, specifically light guns. And one of the things that I really don't like is my library is old. A lot of it's disc based. Some of those systems are suffering from what's called disc rot now. PlayStation 1 is pretty much fine. I guess the way that they did the inking in the discs ended up keeping it kind of it's like preserved them in a way, so that they're pretty much fine. But like things like the Sega Saturn, it used weird etching when it was doing its digital security, which unfortunately erodes the discs sooner. And then you have things like the was the Jaguar? No, Jaguar was cartridge based. There was I think it was the 3DO is one that has really bad discs. GameCube, which is a fairly, it's not that old of a system. It's like what, almost maybe 20 years old? No, less than 20. It's, I don't even think it's definitely not able to drink, but
It should be close to 20 because I know
it's getting there. It's like
in-
16 years,
It was
16, 17.
released in September of 2001, so good try.
Yeah.
Oh, it can drink. Okay. But still, that's relatively early that's still a relatively younger system. Specifically a disc-based one that has a specialized media disc. But those, because the data was so compact on those tiny CDs, because they were using the 2.5-inch discs. Those like GameCube games not only are now stupid expensive, but if you're not getting them from a reputable source or like a store, you're paying like $200 for a disc that's probably busted and rotten. Because I guess a lot of them have had that problem. But one thing that we can all rest assured of, any DVD or Blu-ray we have will totally be fine, because I think they have like 100-year shelf life. So we'll be dead before those go away. But some of those older CD systems, though, man, those are they have a time limit on them. And that is why I totally believe if I cannot physically purchase, like if I can't go to the store and buy something brand new, as far as video games goes, I am pirating the shit out of it. Because if you don't give me a way to actually purchase it, I will pirate it, because I want to play it. And I think that video games and older movies should have some form of digital preservation for this instance. And a good example of that would be there was a game that just came out not too long, or that was there's an MMO that was out not too long ago. Now I know MMO. Oh no, it wasn't an MMO. It was a single player game. I can't remember what the company was. It might have been Ubisoft or something, but they pretty much wiped it from the face of the earth. There is no way to get a hold of it because it was online only. I think it was single player, but you had to be online to play it. And there's something else tied to it, but I remember like there's now like it is something that can never be touched again, essentially. And
Anthem?
Might have been, no, it wasn't Anthem. It was earlier than Anthem, I think, and it was a PC exclusive. But yeah, I think no, there needs to be. I can understand why they say that we lease the items, because technically we are just leasing a CD key or just a license key. But I think there should be a way that if these places go down, you should be able to pull that and store it locally. And if you lose it, hey, that's on you. But at least you had you had something you physically paid for. I will say this though, for like streaming services, like for video game streaming, Google Stadia was garbage. It was a shit platform. It was never gonna make it. But I will give Google a good old POB. Because anything you bought on Stadia, they refunded. So like people who went in there and bought, because you were buying games and then playing them over over like a service, and yeah, any games that were any purchases made on there, they like Google refunded it back to the users. So I will say this, good on them. Like that's another option too. I would say if they can't find a way to give you a copy of it, they should at least recompensate you back. Because last I checked, on the TOS, there's nothing there about the date when my license will no longer be usable. If that makes sense.
Fair.
Yeah.
So one of the arguments that you hear a lot here is you don't want, or auteurs don't want their media only released digitally, especially with like day and date releases to a streaming platform, because the people viewing the film are not seeing it in the resolution it was meant to be seen. Like nobody wants to watch Oppenheimer in 1080p streaming it from Netflix, right? Like that's gonna be a pretty shit experience compared to going to see it in IMAX, which was absolutely gorgeous. And I can pretty much understand that, but That being most of the reason of people have issues with the day and date type streaming service. We only do the digital platform. Physical media isn't really a thing. Most of those issues, other than wanting to preserve the film industry, and really it's just the movie theater industry because the film industry is clearly doing just fine in that respect. It's that the streaming services just don't provide enough throughput for their product so people can watch them the way that they should be viewed. Like if you want to get a Blu-ray uh, downloaded to your computer, whether you get that through piracy or you're going to rip it straight off of the Blu-ray disc, if you get it in proper size and quality, it's going to be anywhere from 600 to 200 gigs or 60
Mm.
to 200 gigs for that file. And you're going to be able to view it at the resolution you would see through a Blu-ray player on an OLED nice TV. And it would effectively be the same experience. But when you're downloading 99% of the time 1080p quality video, or you're doing their ultra HD experience that you're clearly being upcharged for and that we all pay for, it's still only 1440p at that point. So you're not getting that same experience. And
So,
in that regard, I agree.
so I'm gonna jump in really quick and say it's not a 1080p experience. There has been some proof that when you use the browser for watching Netflix, it automatically drops you down to a 720p resolution with a lower bit rate for the audio.
And that's even better.
Exactly. Unless you're using there's like some unless you're using some specific browser that I think they partnered with.
Interesting. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, Mudahar did a video on it. I think Some Ordinary Gamers. If you don't know who Some Ordinary Gamers is on YouTube, you should find out. That man is amazing. His virus investigations are some primo nerd shit.
What's your opinion, Rico?
Yeah, yeah. Let's hear from you, the man who asked the question.
In my opinion, I would say it's not going to get into the weeds as you guys have done. I think it's more of a basic. I think the basic, I guess, my opinion would be is that if I pay for something, then I want to own them.
Mm. And that's
And
totally
like you said,
understandable.
if I don't know. All right, I'm gonna come up with a wild example. Come up with a wild example. I'm not gonna be funny, but it's like going to a strip club. You're giving your money to somebody. And this is not to make fun of them, but the way I look at it is like a strip club. I'm giving you money, but what is my investment? I don't own you. Depending on what state you're in, you can't touch you, can't do stuff. Some of them can't get naked. So it's one of those things of I'm just paying you for the experience, but that's not how they sell it. They sell it as saying, "Hey, if you purchase this item for this amount, you get to own it. You can view it whenever you want to." So that's why with at least for streaming movies and stuff, I would never personally buy them because again, I feel like this again, I may be like a little bit paranoid, and I agree with Christopher Nolan. Like once that streaming service goes away, there's no way for me to retain it unless I do some of the suggestions that for any federal people listening, I do not agree with. But if you have to do piracy, whatever, then yeah, I can understand that part. Now, on the other side, I do buy digital games. Not because it's convenient, but it's more of I learned a lesson when my kids were younger. Actually, my two oldest daughters, where when it came to discs and especially memory cards, I don't know if anybody remembers the PS2. You had the memory cards; those came up missing. And so after that incident, somebody putting a disc upside down in one of the consoles I had, I was like, I'm going digital. We can't do this no more. So that wasn't even more or less of owning it. It was more or less of a peace of mind. But I do agree with one of the videos that I saw again earlier today was, yeah, if PlayStation says, hey, we're no longer going to do this. And Young Ye gave an example of the PT trailer. Like I
Mm-hmm.
still have the PT trailer on PS4, and Konami's still trying to make sure that nobody can play it.
Yep.
So if you try to re-download on PS5, you can't do it. But it's one of those things where, yeah, I'm going to be stuck like some of these folks that are finding out with Sony's media, where it's like, if you go, like, if you took my PlayStation subscription away, I wouldn't necessarily care because the majority those games are free. So I know that if I don't subscribe, I don't get those games. But if you're telling me that I paid, for example, Diablo 4, that's $100 game
Mm-hmm.
that I paid for. If you're telling me now that hey, you can't have access to this, I look at it as more or less a consumer, not because of the quality of how it plays, just the fact that, hey, I paid you $100 to have early access, all this stuff, and you're gonna tell me now I can't play my game? That's
It's
kind of like that's the kind of move that I'm not gonna lie. I would jump back to Xbox. I would take everything out and say, hey, what's Xbox doing? And I would sell everything and just go back to Xbox.
So it's funny that you mentioned that about Diablo 4. That is a game that is a single player game that requires an online connection. So when Blizzard flips that switch, I hope you didn't like Diablo 4 that much, because you aren't going to be playing it unless they decide to put in an offline patch, which, knowing Blizzard, they will not do.
Mm. Well, we'll see what they say. Because again, with Phil Spencer with Xbox, he said they weren't going to do that stuff, but they were going to help out with Sony and everything else. So
Oh, and then now look at them. They're doing more backwards original Xbox compatibility. Like I just saw an article a couple days ago that they're ramping that up again, and it's going to start bringing more games over to the system. And
yeah,
I saw no need in buying an Xbox, because everything that is on Xbox is on the PC, and I have a gaming PC. But good on them, because that is actually an awesome thing. Whereas you got Sony, where it's like, oh yeah, I know PS3, you could play PS1 games on that. That's fine. PS2, yeah, you could play PS1 games on that. Like, it just kept going up and up, and then PS4 came, and why are you gonna play those crappy old games? PS5 came along. It's like, okay, yeah. Listen. We know you like some of those pixely games. So if you pay us $100 a year, you can play those pixely games in our PlayStation Classics catalog. Because we have all the software on the system needed, that if you have a disc, you just pop it in. But we're not consumer friendly, thank you.
playing with that though, it's playing on somebody's need. Oh, my bad, Hunter. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
With you mentioning again with the Xbox Game Pass, they're playing on the nostalgia and it's being smart. That's one of the arguments I had with PlayStation. What was the issue? Like I feel like when they look at the consoles and how they look at the games, and even if you go back to Nintendo will go back to the backlog. I'm pretty sure those guys my age that grew up with Super Mario One, even the original Super Mario Brothers, where you run across the screen.
Oh no, that was Hunter and I. We grew up with it. Like, the only console we had until the N64 was an NES.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where, as the progression goes, if you would go backwards, and I'm not saying it's going to be cheap. Again, you guys can dive into the tech and the specs and everything. But from a consumer, I always say the same thing. Like, go back to some of your titles and see which one hits. Because again, give it up to Phil Spencer. One of his things he said in speech was, I'm paraphrasing, but basically he said, what is the game?
Banjo-Kazooie?
He mentioned that, like, hey guys, don't worry about it, it's coming. And so going to the X Twitter feed, you see at least the top 30 comments, people commenting on that game to talk about, yes, bring it back, Phil, let's do this. You have some nostalgia. Now that you could say also, like, those 30 people don't count because you don't know what's a need for. But again, if you do backwards compatibility and the Game Pass gives them that for that part, you're gonna have some suckers that are gonna pay $100 for it.
And as you mentioned Game Pass, let me just throw this out here. That is the best value for video games, in my opinion. I have the Ultimate Pass. It's like $16 a month. I get access to. I can stream Xbox new releases. I get a whole PC library of games to play. A lot of them are like first days, and for $16 a month, it's a steal.
So I have a differing opinion than most people on values of video games and the idea of spending $100 on Diablo 4 the day it comes out. Because the way I see it, especially when it comes to console games, you really have two true values of the game. The first is the dollar value of the game in a new box state throughout the life of the console. So if the game comes out, second year it's been out, the console's overall lifespan is 6 years, and the game throughout the course of that whole time frame is on average $20 because the hype died down for it after 2 months it had been released and it started going down in price, then that's the real value of the game. Everything else you're spending on it past that point for like the day it's released for collector's edition, you're paying for the other things to go with it, and you're paying for the opportunity to play it sooner than whenever it will reach its true value. Whereas after that console's over and it hits that nostalgia point and the value starts skyrocketing because people can't find it anymore in stores, then its true value comes back around. But again, that's a different phase in that game's life cycle.
So I'm going to stop you there
Whereas,
for like one quick second.
sure.
So I get what you're saying. Explain Nintendo, because when was the last
That's
time
different
that,
because Nintendo is entirely IP based out of their very small catalog of characters that they are going to build their franchise and their games around. And so pretty much any Pokemon game, any Mario game, take your pick, they're always going to stay up in value because they know what people like, they know what they want, and because the product is scarce, it's never going to dip down into those $5-10 bargain bin items throughout the console's lifespan that you're going to see for Xbox and for PlayStation, which is why I don't necessarily have a problem paying for an all digital library service such as Game Pass or uh, Sony's PlayStation Now service, because yeah, I know I'm just borrowing this game. I'm able to play it while I pay for the service or until this service goes away over time. But I don't care because the value for the game arguably is going to be in the bin 6 to 9 months after it releases anyway. And so if I'm only paying a fraction of that dollar amount while I have this service, and then after the fact, maybe 2 generations later, if I want to purchase the game and play it through their digital platform, whatever it may be, that they're going to hook me back into it so I can get that dopamine hit on it, well, that's fine. I got the value out of it during its early lifespan, and now the console's over. Now I can play it again at a later date, and I don't necessarily care that I'm borrowing it and I don't get to keep it overall, because really I'm not going to play it every day, or I'm maybe going to pick it up once every 6 months, say, that was pretty fun after a couple hours, and then drop it.
Okay, that's actually rather reasonable.
No, I mean it is. I mean, like I said, I think for I don't want to say it's like a generational thing, but I guess for some of us, it's more or less of how you view like Hunter said, how you view the value of it. I'm always going to be on certain things. I'm always going to be like, oh, I want that physical copy, so I don't have to worry about going online, whatever. Like I was gonna make a joke, but I was being serious. Like if you want DVDs, like our local library
Oh
that I
yeah.
went to, they sell them for like $1. Like I got a bunch of it's some of the special edition Batmans, oh the extra scenes, stuff like that. Actually, I got to go back there and buy some more. But I'm serious. Like Danielle didn't believe me. Like I brought home. We went to the library for Sebastian. He got books. I got DVDs, like 30 DVDs. I'm just going through like, okay, yeah, that's interesting. Oh crap, I can't believe it. Let's take this. I mean, again, just for $1. I mean, it's all in the honor system too, because we have like a little box you put your money in, and I'm like,
Jeez.
I'm looking for a camera, like putting my money in.
The
But
actual honor system.
well, I mean, I just don't want to get tackled. Get this beard right here. All of a sudden, it's like security.
Of course.
But I mean, I guess I get 100 point on the value and then the nostalgia later on that part. It's like to me, it's always going to be like one of the things you're always going to have. I guess at a certain point, you're always going to have access to it. So it just depends on that part. Maybe I'm more of, can I pull it off the shelf anytime I want to versus relying on somebody else's service. But I mean, I value that point too.
I just hoard everything digitally, but that's because I have too many
And
hard
physically.
drives.
Yeah, see, you guys are just the opposite of me. You guys are more the tech savvy. I'm more of the physical, the savage. What you want to call it? Like, I guess it's a generational thing. It's just that's how we were. Like, I still remember my folks having VHSs like in a whole shelf of everything,
Oh man.
like three to four movies on them. Like, I mean, just endless one. And in no particular order. Like Freddy Krueger could be with a Disneyland movie.
Yep.
We just had them all there.
But you always
And
knew
so
where that
it was
tape
all-
was. You always knew.
Yeah. And you hope that the label was really good because, again, you see number one, like, cool. And then you had to fast forward it to where you got to get.
And
But
you
it's just
could
the fact that, hey,
and you could tell how
just
many
go there.
times you've watched the tape by how grainy it is.
yeah.
Did we wear out was it Clerks or Mallrats?
Mallrats.
It was Mallrats. We had a Mallrats VHS. We watched that thing every night for like 3 years. That VHS was like dying. It was screaming for death by the end.
And
Actually, I think I got that on DVD.
Oh yeah. No, we have that on DVD too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I met Kevin Smith when the latest Clerks movie came out, and I went to see it out in Dallas and got to meet him, ask a couple questions, get some pictures, a lot of fun jazz. He said his next movie was going to be Mallrats 2, but he still has not announced that film yet, and I am upset about this.
I have heard something about Mallrats 2 though, but that could have been somebody asked him. Like it might have just been like a rumor mill type deal.
I thought I heard they were going to do a Dogma 2. I'm a little jumpy. Like on
I don't
X or
think
Twitter.
he can afford Matt Damon and Ben Affleck anymore.
Yeah, but oh man, Dogma
I
2
think
would
they'll do
be good.
It could be for nostalgia, getting the gang back together.
That's fair.
Because Matt Damon has said like he's done movies where like he doesn't either he gets paid, but it's not like his regular rate. But it's just the fact that he loves doing that stuff and doing that crap. Plus Ben, he's probably just like, hey, I need to break from J-Lo real quick with pictures and stuff.
You have to see where does the gut lie and how big is the beard. That's when you know what type of movie he's gonna do.
Also, how long is the drag on the smoke?
Yes. If it's hanging off like that, like an old granny in the 50s, if it's just ash up to the filter, you know he's ready to do like a Mallrats too.
Hey, you marry a Latina, hey, man, some problems, man. Some problems.
But I think we should all give a round of applause that he did get J-Lo back. The first, what would this be? Consumer grade thick girl for the masses. Because okay, listen, I'm gonna dive into a thing. As a man, as a oh god, what was the? As an odontologist. Yeah, we're going on the deep end now. Listen. Love J-Lo. Don't understand why people said she had a big butt back in the day, though, because that's... Oh, homie, that's not true. Unless somebody
was trying to get us canceled before we have a single viewer.
What was that?
How are you trying to get us canceled before we have a single viewer?
Yeah.
All right, so we're just let's swipe away from that subject then. All right, so you want to get into Gantz and finish this thing up then?
Yeah, speaking about butts, let's get into Gantz.
There are a lot of butts in the Gantz. And as Hunter texted me last night, he forgot how pervy Oda was.
Dude, this man is a straight freak, and everything he writes is
all of his stuff is
the
out there. So for those uninoculated, we're talking about Hiroi Oku's magnum opus, Gantz. I hope I didn't butcher his name wrong because I can kind of see my screen. But yeah, so we might carry this on to like the next episode. We're not we haven't really talked about it yet, but I would really like that because I just finished Gantz for the first time, and oh boy, does it go places. But yeah, so what we decided to do was we all reread up to chapter 90, which encompasses 91, which encompasses the first 3 hunts, and quite some story developments as well. The best way to describe Gantz from the internal character's point of view is George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones said, we're gonna kill off some major characters sometimes, like some characters you might even like. And the Mr. Oku goes, hold my beer. Everybody's not safe.
We had drastically different summaries for this book that we wrote.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody else what's up?
Hunter, what's wrong with your brother? Oh,
right.
oh.
So here's what I tried to write as an overall summary of Gantz. It's a gripping sci-fi manga where death is not the end, but a doorway to a mysterious game orchestrated by a black sphere. When individuals facing untimely deaths find themselves resurrected and forced into deadly Gantz missions. They must confront gruesome extraterrestrial threats and earn their freedom, fueled by intense action, complex character development, and a dark exploration of life and morality. It immerses readers in a high-stakes world where survival comes at a profound cost.
That sounds way better than mine.
Wow. Oh, so mine was like pee pee poo poo fart jokes. His was like, let me just show you my manuscript of my thoughts.
New Sisto
I
and
gotta put that
Ebert.
college education at work every now and again.
Yeah. What's a college education?
I don't use it for my 9 to 5, so.
My synopsis of it was: given mere directives, gear, and several weapons, recently deceased humans find themselves in a kill or be killed situation as a race against the clock to capture or kill beings deemed as aliens. The reader is introduced to Kai Corono, I say his name wrong, as he grapples with his death, his strength and weaknesses, his sanity, and most importantly, his virginity, as only a 15-year-old pre-crisis teenager would know.
Oh, so the overall themes of this book, it really comes down to two things: love, whether it be that it drives you to do very emotionally reckless and stupid things like we see in the last mission we're going to talk about today, or the love and wanting to protect others around you or live for someone else. So that, I mean, overall, that's a pretty solid foundation for the story, especially when it's a fight themed story and it's supposed to be about an intimate group of characters that come together under these obscure circumstances, right? I was like, cool, this seems like pretty normal. This is a great foundation for your book. And the second main theme is lust. Like straight up uncompromising lust everywhere you look.
Sexual predators.
I would also like to say, from a third point of view, it is also a very interesting look into being conscripted into a unwinning war against your own will and the atrocities of war. And that'll play a big part later on too. But you can definitely see it in the beginning.
I think I Okay. Yeah, I wrote that in. No. I wrote that in one of my sections. Kind of
interesting.
Like that.
Okay. Yeah. So let's start with the first issue and the first hunt.
Okay. Before we dive into that, okay. So to go back to just the unreasonable level of perviness that Oku has in his books, just to lay a foundation for you guys to know, this isn't just Gantz. Hen was his first manga, and that was a romantic comedy. Mattel no Kimochi, I'm pretty sure I said that about halfway correct, was about a dude who has a hot for his stepmom. Like, that's really what it came down to.
And so another thing to throw in there, in one of the in the later on issues, there's a little blurb at the end. The book he was writing before Gantz was a semi-similar story, but it was about a guy who could change his gender on the fly, and pretty much he turns himself to a chick and just bangs everybody. Like, he becomes full on hoe.
So it's the premise of Gen V.
Pretty much, yeah. Here,
yeah.
Well, while we broke Perez, I'm gonna go grab a drink. I'll be right back.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and the other book that's really worth mentioning is Gigant. It's about a high schooler who falls in love with an adult porn star who just cosplays Giant Man and fights demons. Like, she just gets to be the height of a skyscraper buck naked and just starts wailing on him. Like, this dude has an unreasonable level of sexual frustration in his life, and no amount of ink is going to change that for him.
I get that, and that's something I told Nico yesterday when we were doing the previous code opening, where I'm reading this. Okay, so for the viewers out there, like, read tons of books, Stephen King. I read some that are off other authors. So as far as reading manga, I'm more used to the anime. That's how I was introduced to Japanese animation. You know, literally walking in the barracks room, somebody's watching Ninja Scroll, and the craziness that I saw. Again, just for viewers, like, I didn't see some of the stuff growing up. Like, video games was one thing, but seeing certain things wasn't. So again, walking to a barracks room and you see somebody get messed up, arms ripped off, there's a dude drinking his blood. I'm like, what is this? I want to know more about this. Because anybody watching Ninja Scroll, it gets even crazier, cooler, whatever.
Oh, it starts at like a 30 and then cranks
Mhm.
right up to 99.
But with this one, and I guess it's something that me and Nico were talking about. It's kind of like going back and watching Smallville. There's a nostalgia of, hey, I used to watch the show. Cool. Then there's the older part of me, the season part where I'm like, kind of going with my synopsis. It's like this is a school with 15-year-olds, and it's like you got one talk about, yeah, we're gonna go pull his pants down, and then we're gonna stick something in his butt, and then some dude comes out of the stall and he goes, hey man, how about I get a go at him, and then I put my dick in him, and I'm like, hey, pause, what kind of school is this? What we doing? Like I felt like an adult, like, hey, what is going on? Even some random guy that they're like, hey, pull his pants down. Like, why are we pulling down pants? Can't we just beat somebody's ass? I feel like if I was in the gang or the bullies, I'd be the one guy going, why are we pulling down the pants? Like, it doesn't make no. It doesn't. I mean, given the history of this guy, I'm like, that's. You guys can go more into it, but that was one thing that just kind of threw me off a little. This dude, he doesn't care. Like, okay, cool, I got it. This is the world.
Mean, it's fair, but I appreciate how the sodomy comes after they rush up behind him and hit him in the back of the head with the baseball bat, like as the first part of their plan.
Yeah.
They're like, now he's dead. Let's shove a stick up his ass.
Yeah. Don't you just love teenagers?
Yeah, because it's the only. Oh man, go ahead. Because there's more into it where I feel like, again, I agree with Hunter's point where it's like how the setup is, and then it's like, okay. So.
Yeah. No. I find it interesting that our main character, K, shows up, and the first thing you get from him is just kind of like he's just looking at a little sensual magazine of some model with some big cans, and then he's just kind of like thinking about all the people around him, like, man, these are all these people are just useless and there's nothing to them. He's just pretty much calling everybody an idiot. And one of the interesting things I find about this story is, so Japan has they have two main character archetypes. You have your cold-blooded heroes and your like red hot heroes. So your cold-blooded ones are going to be like your more cold and calculated type characters. To use a reference that I think would work really well for a cold-hearted character, it would be Spock. Spock would be a cold-hearted character as far as like Japanese character, like main characters go, whereas Kirk is your hot-blooded hero. He's the one who's going to jump in and he's got to get that win and get the girl type deal. And the thing about K and going through like the first three main battles here is you starts out as this like meek, cold-blooded character, and you slowly see him kind of turn into that red hot, that red, God, I can't remember the word right now, but like the kind of like hot-blooded hero. But then when shit hits the fan, however, it's almost like he just falls off of the scale entirely. And it's really interesting to see a character, specifically in a Japanese comic, that does that, because it's not very often that you see that.
Yeah, I mean, all of his actions throughout the series are always very emotionally driven.
Mm-hmm.
He has no real understanding of himself or how to control himself in any given situation. I mean, that comes up a lot with what's her Kisumoto when she's his pet in his apartment, or anytime they're in the battle, he's either extremely afraid or he's angry and cocky and just wanting to go balls to the walls and show everyone that he's better than everyone else there and why she should have picked him over Kato. So he's either on all the time or he's off. There's no in between for him, and that really just, I felt like, went to show his emotional immaturity as a 15-year-old kid being thrust into this situation.
Exactly, but it humanizes him compared to most shonen protagonists, which is one thing I do like, because you can't, like, Kai is the kind of character that you wouldn't see in things like Dragon Ball or like One Piece or any of those, like, or Naruto or any of the major ones. Whereas something like this, it kind of shows you that like it's a really good start for how to just kind of ground the main character.
He's Anakin.
Yes, but with better acting.
Hey. Mm,
Uh,
no, not on my watch. No.
I mean, I feel like that
Yeah.
comparison is inaccurate because you're comparing shonen series to what this was, Young Jump,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it was Young
But
Jump.
it's clearly intended for a drastically different and an older audience. They weren't trying to find a franchise that could go for years inside of the shonen issues,
I
and
get that.
all of the shonen manga are just meant for like 8 to 15-year-old boys, and that's their main demographic. But yet for some reason I'm 30 and wearing a Goku t-shirt, so clearly it didn't work for him.
No,
But
nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
Okay, then let me rephrase that a little bit. You don't see them more in these types of comics, like not often anyway. Berserk was one where you did kind of show that, because Berserk is another one that deals with like just broken human beings. But I mean, one that would you consider Fist of the North Star shonen?
no.
Okay, well, because it originally was. So
Yeah,
like
but
that's
it's definitely
kind of
not
where I'm getting
intended
that
for that
from.
audience, so
Oh,
that's fair.
okay, but you get what I'm saying though, right?
Yeah.
All right. I don't. We went on a tangent there. What were we
We did.
talking about?
No, you're just talking about the development
Mm.
of we'll call him the main character one, which was key, and how he views the world right now as a 15-year-old in the normal world, and then his later transformation as he goes. And I think that the reason why I say Anakin is not necessarily just the way it was; it's just the viewpoint. You're thrusting a kid in a situation, and your expectation is that it will grow to something else, but you don't realize the different influences coming in that's going to change that. And it could be again people, or as we see it, his own emotions. Because again, I find myself as again as an adult reading these, and I'm like again, when Hunter mentioned the pet thing, I'm like, okay, so we're just going to come out with that, and that's it. Like it's just scenarios where it's like, oh man, it's like a love, kind of like a love and hate thing where I don't want to be a backseat leader in a sense where I'm like, well, if I was in that situation,
Mm-hmm.
this is what I have to handle. But I definitely get the aspect of how he's still trying to grasp a certain thing, and unfortunately, there's nobody to able to teach him in this one because
He's a
you're gonna, I
15-year-old
mean,
living
people are
on
gonna
his
find out
own.
he's already by himself.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, there's a phone call he has with his mom. His mom's like, "What do you want? You want more money? Don't call me."
Yeah.
Like I'm like, damn, okay, so I see how that was with him versus the other characters. The other
Kato.
people, yeah, like you see how Kyle is where he's treated bad by family, but at least he has his brother, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the only thing that he cares about, and that's in real life that's his only mission. Like I need to get him out of here, and that's it. So I think with at least the three main characters, I'm not gonna call her by her name.
Uh,
Uh,
what tits?
Ishimoto. At least with those three, I can say is that if you want to include them in the transformation, they're all coming from some scenario at home,
Mm.
where it's out of some type of pressure which led her to her actions. But then again, with these guys, were guys left by himself. Kado was just dealing with his aunt and dealing with just the fact that it's just him and his brother.
And then we can't forget Nishi, our favorite cat killing psychopath in the corner.
I've got commentary for Nishi, but I feel like I gotta save it for the second mission.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's jump into the first mission. So, as we stated earlier, so when the characters end up when they're on the brink of death, Gantz, which is this giant black ball, will pull them into some random hotel, like apartment room in Tokyo, and pretty much gives them the mission to go out and kill aliens. Um, the first hunt was the onion alien, which is one of my favorites aesthetically. Um, the picture, the description of it was like a small, almost childlike creature that had a head shaped kind of like the end of the tip of a chive, and he was he said he was strong, he loves friendship, and his catchphrase is an onion will do. And it's random because like the ball just says, hey, go finish this guy off, and then just drops him into the situation.
And something else to make sure to note there is that the sphere does open at one point before they leave, and it gives them some sort of exosuit and various types of weapons that they can choose to take with them. They don't necessarily have to, and that's a big part of the plot as the missions progress and new characters come into the manga. So I will say for this mission, I felt so much worse for the Onion Boy in the anime than I did in the manga. In the anime, when I watched it and I watched that initial scene, because it's the three characters we talked about already, and then you have the Yakuza Bros and just
Blondie,
yeah,
and
you
the
have
nerd.
yeah, and Yakuza Bros, they've already set themselves up for failure. Like, you want to watch them die. He did a great job introducing those characters and make you instantly hate them.
Oh yeah.
But in the anime, like, you get to see so much more emotion from the Onion Kid as he's running away from them, and he's saying, "I'll give you one. I'll give you an onion," and you just feel bad for the kid. And even as I was a teenager watching that, I remember thinking, "Nope, this sucks. I don't want to watch this anymore. I'm done." And I left the anime. I didn't want to come back to it. I was like, I don't know how it's going to redeem itself from here, and frankly, I don't care. But in the book, I really did not care nearly as much. Until after they killed him and Big Onion Man came, and then
Oh,
I
you
was
mean
like,
Freddy
oh,
Krueger?
yeah, and I was like, yeah, you with the knife hands, kill all of them. I don't care. Do it. I am on your side. Get it.
Yeah, so that is actually one of my favorite designs for the aliens, at least in the prior to the Osaka arc. He is probably one of my top favorites because Hunter can attest this. We grew up watching Nightmare on Elm Street from an age that we probably shouldn't have been watching it. And yeah, no, Freddy Krueger's just kind of like ingrained in the old gray matter upstairs. And yeah, seeing a what is essentially a tyrant from Resident Evil who happens to be Freddy Krueger just annihilate a group of like 6 dudes armed with what are ostensibly hand explosive hand cannons, literally. And yeah, it was just like, oh yeah, that was dope. What if Jason, it was Freddy? Pretty much.
Yeah, so one thing I want to mention, because this is my overall theory for the manga, because I haven't read past 94, whatever I'm at now, and I know it goes much further than the anime does, and at one point they had to diverge, and the anime got much worse, and that's why it was canceled, because it was ahead of the source material, right?
Actually, what happened was they just they ran out of money, if I remember correctly, so they just hurried an ending up, so they didn't have to go. They didn't want to piss too many people off, and be like, look, we can't finish this, so here's a little ending. That's what sucked.
Okay. Well, that's somehow worse.
Yeah.
But they make this big hubbub during this arc that the glasses, I'm pretty sure that was his name. He kept talking about how, this is a TV show, and so did Nishi, and we have to find the actor and kill him, in air quotes, and then we'll get 10 million yen, and everything else. And they set up that theme, and I do legitimately think that it is going to end up being some sort of extraterrestrial race as come down to Earth, and they are cherry picking people as they're dying to bring them into this game show for some entity off planet or whatever it is. And there are betting pools of people guessing who's going to live, who's going to die, how they're going to die, whether or not they're going to complete the mission. I think that makes the most sense, and it's just a really fun theory at this point. So I'm curious to see how it's going to end.
I love that theory. A lot, actually.
Actually, I would raise that theory and say, since you made the point about how they're not forced to get the weapons or the gear, what if it, again, going off the alien, what if it's just a test? One of the things I wrote in my notes is that all they get from Gantz is saying, "Hey, here's this person. Let's go get this guy or whatever." That's it, and that's at least for me. Where I wrote it down as big onion, small onion. That was the whole thing that at least set the press, at least for the future hunt. One thing that struck me is like none of the aliens are doing nothing bad. It's not like you're going up to them and you find them doing something. They're just walking or whatever. And usually, even with the later hunts, they themselves have to initiate something, and that's it. I mean, granted, we know what they know is that depending on we'll get to that point where as far as the time limit and the point system. But that's one thing I at least put down. Is like, at one point I'm like, okay, how do I know these aliens are bad? Like, if you want to throw in, I think you mentioned Nico about the soldier thing. It's like, okay, how do we know this is the
Mm-hmm.
enemy? You're just telling me this is them and go fight them. So you
Why
know,
though? That's the big question. Why are
yeah,
you
like I
being
got
told
no,
to
I
fight?
got I got
Mm-hmm.
no choice. And Kato even does that later on, where he's like, you got to put in this gear because it's going to survive. But then my question is that while Mace seems stuck, you find out later if you don't do nothing, there's another issue with that one. But um,
Oh, and I just
I
want to
agree
say
with
that is probably one of the most interesting things is what happens when it hits zero.
yeah,
Yeah, well, no spoilers on that
I'm
one,
not saying
but
anything, but I'm
no,
saying it
no,
is
no.
very interesting. It is very interesting.
yeah, and they really drive it home in the third mission
Mm-hmm.
with the Buddhist priests and trying to have that balance between who's going to listen to the veterans who have been through this before versus was essentially a charlatan at this stage
Oh
and trying to
yes.
convince people that no, don't listen to anything they're telling. They're lying to you. You need to follow what I'm telling you. I have the truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And trying to see that balance, and that's what really makes it feel like a game and like there is someone controlling this for someone else's entertainment because so much of it is left as a choice for the user who gets dropped in there of do you want to participate or not, and if you do, here are your options. So yeah, I'm really excited to finish this series.
Okay. Okay. So as you might have figured out at this point, they do capture the alien, and then everybody goes back to the room and they get graded on their on how many enemies they killed during the match. So kind of like
Well,
your typical game of Call of Duty.
let's not jump too far forward because I still had something else I wanted to say
My
for
apologies.
for the actual battle
Okay.
between
Oh no, go ahead. Because
K.
and
Is it
honestly,
K or Kai?
so it's K.
Okay, so when Kay is fighting the big onion man and fighting when he's running away from him and pissing his pants, he gets to the point where he's about to jump that staircase and you see the big veiny throbbing suit finally come to life, which again going back to sexual frustrations that Oku clearly has. Uh, when he jumps and he's like in midair and he's like, "Holy shit, I jumped too far. I'm about to die." That reminded me of every dream I have ever had
Mm-hmm.
where I've had to jump and you get that like
That
thinking
ooh.
pit of your stomach feeling as you realize you're falling and it's gonna hurt. I hated reading that so much because it reminded me of it. But then I immediately started laughing when I noticed that Onion Man had no idea what stairs were and he was just tumbling face first down the whole thing.
I
One
think
of
for
the
him, I
best
think that was
moments of the
more. I
whole
think that was
series.
more rage and anything. Rage will blind you, and so you're just so. If you're putting on that one, I think well, Onion Man and him falling was just he was so like, hey, I'm going to get my revenge or his version of justice to the point where, yeah, if you get too focused on something, something's about to happen on that part.
Yeah. I also really wondered what uh, when the little onion man was he kept spraying saliva everywhere. I always wondered if that was supposed to be like him trying to mark them. Was that him trying to hurt them? Was it just that he has an unreasonable like overproductive saliva glands? Like what's happening there? It was weird and they never expanded on it and it still annoys me.
So I just watched the first couple episodes of the anime this morning, and it does with the moment he walks out of the apartment, he is oozing. It makes me think that you know how when you eat an onion, how you just like if you raw dog an onion, you die inside and visibly you do. It's almost like that because he all he's doing is chewing on onion leaves. I think he was actually literally just draining out everything.
I mean, that could make sense if it was just overactive sinuses. I could see
Yeah.
that.
Kind of like when if you eat something spicy, how everything gets overloaded and start,
Mm-hmm.
nose is running everything. I actually felt that when he was, spreading all that fluid was either A, they were going to get melted or something was going to happen, somehow someone was going to catch a fire, they're all going to get flamed up. Um, would make sense if he was leaving a scent, at least in the Magnum, because again, there's nothing to show unless it's later on down the road where Big Onion knows he's in trouble and comes that quick because the panels was like it was like and then boom, he's just standing there. So I mean, it could be just like that. He was marking him. He was marking a sense, and he picked up something that was unusual, and he was like, "I got to get home," and that's what it was. Unless somehow he heard the whole, "I'll give you an onion," and that was like his cry for help, and that's what caused Big Onion to come. Because all
Yeah.
we know, I mean, even with the way he was talking, like you notice, like we only understood what the Little Onion was saying. We didn't understand what the Big Onion was saying. And for all we know, that could have been what we are, at least as readers and as those guys in the thing, that could be their interpretation of what he was saying. But really, he was saying something else that was
Didn't
interpreted that Big
he?
Onion.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he actually? Didn't the Big Onion say, "I'll give you an onion" when he was giving up to Kay after Kay like
Yeah.
beat
At
the
that
ever
point,
living
I think, yeah,
shit
yeah,
out
he
of
did.
him?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that goes back to another part of why I think it's some sort of extraterrestrial game is every mission that they get, it's here's this unassuming looking adversary that you have to go either capture or kill, and that's all the information that they get from the sphere. But then as soon as they accomplish that first step in the mission, that's when the plot twist comes in. And again, if you're hosting some sort of game show or you're trying to make it an entertaining product for whatever species is trying to watch it, having some sort of mini boss before the fight actually starts to kick it all off, and then seeing the shock on everybody's face, it's a decent setup.
Mm-hmm. That is fair. That is fair.
Which to me is the frustrating part as the hunts go on because it's like you see the ongoing thing, like you said, you fight one person and then another one shows up or whatever. So it's like by the third one, I'm like, granted, you got new people coming in. I'm like, for these guys who've been here, like, how do you guys not know this? Like at one point, again, that's a little bit frustrating with the play. With I guess you can call them players, is that they're not adapting to the situation
And
at
they
one point.
try, but because they're put into such a foreign environment and they've just been conscripted for war, a lot like what Nico said, they don't know what to do, they don't know what to believe, they're not prepared, they don't want to face the reality of the situation. And so as the veterans are trying to tell them what's going on and try and get them prepared for that battle, all they're trying to figure out is, I thought I was dead, what's happening here, is this the afterlife? And then they're thrust in that situation without ever actually acclimating to it.
Okay. So Hunt 2. My favorite actually of the first three, because was it the Tanaka alien, or what did they call him? It was with
Yeah,
a
it was
T.
Tanaka
It was a
Alien.
Tanaka alien.
Yeah,
I I really love the design, and the big boss and the little sub creatures were a really interesting type of like villain in a sense, because it's kind of like the first, like, if you're playing MMO, it was the first mob boss essentially, like one big bad guy who just has like stupid amounts of minions.
yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, as the mission starts, you see this room with all the little eggs, and you're wondering, what's that for? It looks really humid, and then you see this what ostensibly looks like a robot caricature of a human, and all these little birds floating around behind him. And as the arc goes on, you get to see that, well, it is actually a robot, and as these birds grow up, they can't breathe our air or survive in our atmosphere, and so they live inside of this shell. And I don't know if it purifies the air, if it changes the concentration of CO2 to oxygen or whatever it may be, but it allows them to survive on Earth. And yeah, it was a really cool character. I think overall, I still preferred the main baddie of the third mission over this one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a very close battle of which one I liked more. But it was a really fun design, and I really appreciated the supersonic paw
Yes.
attack that it had, basically.
The everybody knows that crows were deadly. They just needed a microphone.
Yeah,
And this is actually one of the this is the our first main character death too. in a sense, because our favorite psychopath ends up getting his eyes popped and just bleeds out, which is fucked.
So this is where I'm going to go on my soapbox of, yeah, Hiroya Oku, he's a super pervert and just needs to get laid, but also he does a better job than I think even like George R. R. Martin does, as an example of introducing a character, making their actions so egregious that you just hate them off the jump, like the Yakuza bros trying to rape the girl in the first mission before he's pulled off. What was his name? Nishi
Mm-hmm.
wasn't when he refused to tell him what was going on, when he didn't help, when he just used the camouflage machine throughout the whole first mission, and even in the second mission, the only reason he comes into play is because he gets caught by stepping on one of the little chicks, and then his suit breaks down because it can't handle the
So
supersonic awe, whatever we want to call it.
think of it like
But
super armor in an RPG. It's like once that bar depletes, it needs to recharge. So
pretty
you're
much, yeah.
boned. All your superpowers are gone. You are a squishy human again. It's like playing it's like playing Dungeons and Dragons as a level 20, and then as soon as your armor gets pierced, you drop down to a level 1 character, but you just happen to be fighting a god at the time.
Exactly. And it's he does a great job of just making you hate these people so much that when their death is inevitable, like when the Onion Man is holding Yakuza dude by the head and you can see the Freddy Krueger claws like cutting through his ear, you're like, yeah, keep going, do it. I want this so bad. Or in this one, when Nishi's like in the water and he's looking up and he's begging for help or saying, I don't want to die, I want my mommy, everything else. Like you're like, yeah, I kind of feel bad for you, but fuck you in particular, guy. I am excited for what's about to happen here because you deserve this. And he does a great job every time with that. That's the best part of his writing, I think, throughout the whole series.
Oh, actually, we should go back and say that the one weird thing is, so the reason why, what's her name, Kishimoto said that she wanted to be a Kei's pet was because she was found out to be a clone. So what happens is, as it's explained in the first set of chapters, when you get pulled into Gantz, it's almost like the data from a fax machine. You are a fax, essentially. You are a clone of what the original paper was. So Nishi alluded to that, hey, it's been wrong before. I guess there was a previous game where an old man they thought died, and he survived the game, and when he came back, he found that he didn't actually die. It was an oops, pretty much. So that's another thing that's actually really interesting about this is the main MacGuffin of the series is actually fallible.
Mm-hmm.
But then
yeah,
back to the Tanaka fight.
Well, you can go, if you don't mind going back before that. I think that one thing we really got at the Tanaka is, again, the transformation of Ki. Because one thing that I brought up the other day is that it seems like, just like when they get teleported to the room, there's no rules about when you go back to the real world. It's never explained other than the main bad kid saying that, hey, don't talk nothing, you're gonna die. And that's one thing I feel like with Ki, him facing, unlike Kato's like what, 6'2", 6'4". Yeah. So he already has the size on him. He does feel powerless in the school, because that's one thing that I think we do gotta hint back on, is that you have a school full of bullies. Bullies that are, I guess, associated with the Yakuza. But one thing that from the first battle that I think needs to be mentioned is that, due to the fact of the kid not helping him out, the veteran kid not helping him out, the one thing he did say is like, you're just like me. I saw it in your eyes. Mm-hmm. And to me, I see that when he goes back with the power suit, and then he feels that power where nobody can hurt him, whatever, and then he can hurt. And then little by little, especially after the little pet thing with Kishi, it's like, at least for me, I'm like, okay, before we knew what was going to happen to that kid, I was like, okay, my projection is this guy's going to go down the hero path. He's going to face some obstacles. This kid here is going to be the main antagonist. He's going to be a point worker. they're gonna have to fight, and he's gonna have to choose something. Something's gonna happen. Obviously, that didn't come to fruition,
Mhm.
but at least with Corona, to me, that's when you start seeing his little bit of a transformation of I got this power, I got this, and it almost cost him his life when he got teleported for the second fight, the second hunt, and he didn't have his suit.
Mhm.
So I do think that thing we have to mention that part. It's that yeah,
Oh
you
yeah,
start
he
seeing there.
was without powers essentially for the fight.
Yeah, and I think with
And
Yeah,
the veteran kid, that's what he faces. That you
oh, and the string,
not so
and before they even went in, Nishi was like, ah, "You're gonna fucking die. Good job,
yeah,
idiot."
and it goes to show you that at least with that was the kid was only good and up until his suit went out. And when
Hmm.
his suit went out, he became back just like you said from a level 20 to level 1. He went back to that kid where he wanted help. Now the suit gave him power, and he was like he thought he was untouchable until that happened
Hmm.
on part. And I think that's what a lot of people. I think throughout the characters they find out because there are some deaths where it's like, oh man, I was like, come on guys, you guys kill me. Like,
yeah, and that goes back to one of the main themes of the story as well. When I talked about lust, is Kay brings the suit home and he finds out he's about to be bullied and he's gonna go get beat up by some seniors. So he goes to the bathroom and puts a suit on. When the guy tries to attack him, he grabs his wrists and he thinks about breaking him, but ultimately he decides I now hold the power over him. And he's lusting for that status and that power over other people because he doesn't have it in his life at any point. And he just lets him go and then comes back later on in the series when those characters return and they beat him up and he just keeps telling him I'm not paying you. I'm not gonna let you bully me. And he doesn't attack him. He doesn't do anything else because he just knows he fucked with their heads so much by
mm,
using that suit and getting away with it that he now has that control over them.
I do love during that scene where like the dude who looks like Ryu walks in and just gets his ass beat. But before that happens, he's looking at that kid and he was
yeah,
all like, "Yankees leave," right? Then like immediately after saying that, this like senior punk just beats the ever living shit out of him, and then things with K transpire, and at the end he's walking away and he's just like looking at him, he's like, "Yankees leave," like he just like takes that with him.
that goes to show you right there when you get into a fight, don't say anything. If you're gonna fight somebody, fight somebody. But that dude literally took his jacket off and got a knee to the face. That
Mm-hmm.
that for me that shocked me. I'm like, okay, like I thought you were gonna do something. Like you
Yeah,
came
because
in
he
here like
looked
you're
like he had that big brawler type energy, and he was taken down in a second to the point where he's literally getting his teeth pulled out.
yeah, because he was. I think they mentioned he was. They bullied some students of him or whatever. Like he was
Yeah,
part
it
of the
was his
kung fu
he was
or
he's
karate.
a karate instructor, and they stole money from one of his students.
Yeah, so that's what kind of shocked me. Like, okay, well, it's no more karate.
Yeah, so then Nishi bites it, and then Kato is then in a fight with the Tanaka alien. And after they defeat it, they find out that's when we find out that it can't breathe Earth's atmosphere. Essentially, more show up when they thought because the screen only ever said there was one, and that was what it was going. But as soon as that happened, that they didn't start getting transferred back, and we come to find out there's actually what was it, 6 of them or 7, maybe more. Like,
Mhm.
Initially, yeah, and
yeah.
then even more kept coming out of the woodworks
Oh
after that
yeah,
point.
there was, and they were no joke. And yeah, somebody else want to take this? I'm like, I
Yeah.
kind of read
So
through it again, but I'm a little rusty.
yeah, so there's a number of other individuals that are part of this mission that Kato tried to become the leader for, and he was trying to convince them of what's happening, why they need to put on the suit, why they need to take the guns, and uh, one of them is a male model. There's a couple
Mm-hmm.
who are gangsters who were just beaten to death by a rival gang prior to this mission starting,
The
and
male model
there
stalker. Don't forget her.
That's true.
Yeah.
And his stalker. And then
And the
there
grandma and the
was a
kid.
grandma and a son
Oh God.
who were the ones who got hit on the highway and their vehicle ran into the male model and his stalker, and all four of them died and showed up there. And I felt really bad for Ryota, who's the little boy, because he had to pee during this mission,
At the
and
like the
his grandma
wrong
told him to take
time.
off his whole
Yep.
suit for some reason to pee, and that's when three of these Kato bots show up, and she tries to get him to run while she stopped them. They Kamehameha her with their voice into the wall, and then the little boy tried to come back and save her, and she just turns around and like cups his ears, and they both died together. And it was a really sad and extremely sweet scene, uh, because again it goes back to the main theme of the show of love and the will to protect others and to get back to them, because she was trying to get him back to his mom. And it was a really nice scene, and that one I felt much more in the manga than the little onion boy dying.
Hmm.
So I don't want to watch that one in the anime. I know I'm really not going to appreciate that having kids myself. So I don't know if I'm going to watch it, but
I actually thought the grandma, or maybe I'm just coming into this again. I'm coming into this genre. I actually thought she was gonna whoop some ass. I
Oh,
actually thought she was
because she
like,
was straight up
"Hey,
so
come
did
down
I.
for it.
on,"
She said
She
she
and
was
was
I
like,
thought,
gonna.
she was just like out of nowhere. It was gonna be, well, Japanese movie, some type of karate, some self defense. You would have saw some bodies flying. She would have somehow figured out her suit. And then when he came back and then seen his grandma, I'm like, oh, I hate this shit. Like
Mm.
this is not this is, well, sorry for cussing again. But I was like, I hate this. I'm like, I don't like what is this for? Like everybody just like literally like you said, like everybody's going down. Like it's just didn't make no sense. And then when he ran back too, yeah, that got me. Like I was like, damn, man. Like I really felt it was one of those nobody's safe, everybody's gonna die. It just depends. Like weirdly, like Walking Dead, as far as that, where anybody can get bit,
Hmm.
anybody can get destroyed. It just depends on your actions. And then that also left the question in my mind is how does I guess they'll say later on, how does he pick these people? Because it's just random people other than they died.
Yeah.
It's just randomly. Like if you're fighting a war, why would you pick up a kid or even a grandma? I mean, to Hunter's point, it does scream like it's entertainment, like it's a TV show. Like it doesn't it there's no rhyme or reason right now. I
No,
guess that's what kind of frustrates me
I have a
a little bit.
theory on how how Gantz chooses the participants. I think it's as soon as a mission goes, because if you notice when the missions they get the ringing in their ear. I think in that time frame, Gantz pulls whoever dies within that like 30 seconds to a minute before it pulls the contestants into the room. So if you die between that window, that's when you end up in the room. So I'm thinking I think there's like it was never really explained, and if it was, I
Right.
missed it. But that's my theory as to how that works. And in all
Yeah.
honesty, that's one of the only questions that doesn't get answered in the series,
Uh,
and it's one that I really wish they did answer.
yeah, I feel like half of these questions weren't answered, or at least weren't answered earlier in the series because he had no idea how to explain it. Like a lot of this
Hmm.
series just felt like
yeah.
extremely lazy writing that he felt like he could get away with because of the sexual content of it, clearly, all of the blood and violence, and then just like the really intimate like character arcs that he has in each of these missions. But all of the other like broader themes that have to happen in order to set all this up, he's like, if I just make this a mystery, I don't have to explain any of it and it'll be okay. And then everybody else that's reading it just kind of has to make up their own headcanon of what's
Yeah.
going on and how they would do in this sort of situation and what you might think is happening in order to fill in the blanks for him. It's like if I feel like if ChatGPT had existed when this manga was written, he would have used it to figure out all of the boring bits before where he wanted the story to start.
Well,
That's fair.
and that would make sense because even with Gantz, I'm like, all right, so correct me if I'm wrong. All right, you have the sphere.
Mm.
Everybody's calling it Gantz, but then in my head, I'm like, well, who said he's Gantz? Nobody ever said he was, other than the fact that he said, okay, this is what it is. Because at one point, I'm like, okay, this could be just a regular Joe Schmo they put into a a sphere, and he's your weapons master. He's
Yeah.
weapons and gear vendor. That's it. You don't know if it's the person in there,
I
giving the directions, especially the way the language is and stuff. That's again, it screams. I'm a big up hunter again. It does kind of give the notion that well maybe aliens are the ones sending the message because the way the S and the R's are backwards.
mm.
Like it doesn't make no sense or whatever. I mean,
Well, what is kind of interesting is Nishi. I want to say it was at the end of the first mission. Did mention because they asked him why is it called Gantz. It might have been in that mission or it was in one of the first three, or the first two at least. And Nishi says, I don't actually know. That's just it was called that before I got here because he had been there for a year up at that point.
I do got a theory about the dog. That it made no sense.
Oh yeah, Butter Dog.
Well, because the whole point, like we talked about yesterday, was like the dog. Again, going back to the randomness
Mm.
of cats pulling people, and I was like, why would you pull a dog?
And
And
again, that
the first thing I thought was like, well, maybe it was a test run. Like, I don't have a 3D printer, but the way I wrote it was like, let's say, you're hooking up a printer to your computer. So a
yeah,
lot
you
of
got to do
times
a
they'll
test
say, hey,
page.
you want to do a test page, so it's a dog. The other notion was, what if that the reason why the dog is there is because the owner and the dog died, and initially just like with the grandma and the kid, they didn't know it, and unfortunately the owner died,
But the
the
dog
dog
did.
didn't,
Mm-hmm.
which in my head would explain why the dog hasn't died, leaving the call it the one, what
The
do you call it, 1 square
like the
kilometer,
boundaries.
the boundaries, which I thought was, well, maybe if the owner died and the dog is still in there, in the real world, the dog will pick up his scent or something and go off. But
Mm.
in this reality, alternate reality, whatever, it doesn't pick up a scent. So it goes back to the point you made of, well, maybe he's just scrummaging and stuff like that. Which again begs the question is, why is at the end of the mission he's always standing in front of the sphere? Because he'll get 0 points, the dog didn't do nothing,
Mm.
which I thought, well, maybe somehow it thinks like it's going to get a treat because it does give the impression that the dog understands Gats and what's going on, and at least at that moment. But that's the only thing I could think of is like, well, maybe the reason why the dog because the only
Oh. Uh-oh.
And he's gone.
I
Uh,
Is he gone?
but he's frozen. But I do actually agree with that because it makes a whole lot of sense if you look back to like we initially sent a monkey into
Yep.
outer space and we sent a dog to outer space, right? So if you're testing out the new technology, you want to see if it works, great. Unfortunately, it has no drive to actually fight or kill anything, so it just stays around at all times and never leaves.
So in all
And
honesty,
so
that's kind of what got me to thinking that there was like a death window where it pulls you in. Wait. Okay. Oh shit. So Rico lost power.
I see this. Do we want to pause the recording and come back to it?
No, we can keep going. We'll pull him in afterwards because I think we're gonna have to. We might need to call it soon.
All right, that's fine.
Um.
Um,
Well, I think we should be good for a little bit longer. But yeah, maybe
so
give him a few minutes. But let's just continue with this a little bit, and then we can always come back.
Fair enough. So next up, after Ryota and the grandmother die, we see the model and Kato and a couple others fighting. Obviously, Kay doesn't have his suit, so he's more or less just sitting in the back and being useless. So he was left behind.
Mm.
And as the group is fighting, Kato's trying to show them how to defeat the robots, and his suit loses powers again, just like Nishi's did prior, and so he's trying to survive while others are taking down the Kato robots. And then we see Kay is being taken to just an old, looked like a warehouse building of some sort
Oh no,
by
as they put
the,
it, a
the
what do you
gangsters.
call it? A ghetto apartment.
Yeah, there you go. By the gangsters who wanted
Yep.
him to go in and basically sweep the building for him to make sure there was nothing in there, and if there was, then they would basically attack it after it killed him.
Mm-hmm.
When he went in there, he found
Lo and
the
fucking
hive.
behold, yeah, 4 Tanaka bots and what can only be described as the crow from hell.
Yeah, Yeah. No,
What was it?
it reminded me.
What if the Giga Chad had a crow head?
No, actually, what I thought of was in Schitt's Creek. The mother is an actress, and at one point she's playing the Crow Master in like the Crow Master 3 or whatever, and it's clearly like an absolutely terrible B movie, but
Mm,
she's like doing like the wing motion and cawing and everything else. And
mm.
I just like when I saw it, I'm like, this is what the writer had envisioned for that film in Schitt's Creek, and that's not what he got.
Nice.
Yeah, and
But yeah,
uh,
that bird enemy is a interesting alien.
it was a very interesting alien. It was the only one of them that could actually fly.
Mhm.
It had some sort
The
of apparatus leading
respirator.
into its
Hmm.
mouth. Yep, so it could breathe in our atmosphere. And Kay basically just blew up the whole building as a means of getting away, which
Worked.
I mean, I personally think, hey, don't hurt me.
You know what
That
I?
would be faster than just trying to shoot the gun 18 times in
Mhm.
any random direction to blow up the building. But sure, take the long way around the barn.
What's really funny is I got shades of Robert Downey Jr. in the first Iron Man during that scene because that seemed kind of like something Iron Man would do from the first movie, where it's like, shit, blow the building up and run.
Yeah, I I mean it worked in the end, I guess, but not
Mhm.
exactly the most sound strategy.
Yeah, because it did end up getting the Putt Putt gang member two. He
Yep,
got because of it, and then our boy Kay gets to take a nice soar into the skies of Tokyo.
he did.
He didn't get to sing "I Can Show You the World" though, but the bird was definitely trying to.
Yeah. And then Kay ended up getting the kill credit for that one, correct?
Yeah, so because he yanked the respirator out, and as he was falling, he domed him.
That's right. Yep.
But I think
Uh,
he almost lost an arm in that one because if I it was hard to see in the panel, but it looked like the he was getting his arm pretty much like ripped out.
yeah, that's basically what it looked like. And then that was the end of that mission.
Mhm.
Only a few of them ended up getting points.
Oh yeah, and let's
Uh,
talk about the score points because those would be in a basic video game, like
yeah.
like a level 25 bad like minor like open world bad guy, and they're getting 5 experience points per kill. Like,
Yeah.
oh
And
my god, Oku. That was last name? Yeah, Oku. Does Oku is he a huge fan of AD&D? I'm curious.
I mean, it would make sense. And it's
Or even
also,
more first edition because it was like nah, rocks die, everybody dies.
yeah, and that's where it's then revealed that um, you have to get 100 points. Each point is given if you are the one to have killed some sort of creature or captured
Or
it
capture
during
it.
one
Yeah.
of the missions. And if you get to 100 points, you get your life back effectively. And Nishi, while being super jaded, he was in there for a year. He was, I believe, somewhere in the 70s, so he was
No,
pretty close to
he
being able
was
to.
10 points away. He was at 90
Oh, there you
points.
go.
He got because
Yeah,
he got like I think it was 14 points from the Onion Alien, and that was his standing score was 90. And given that fight, he could have been free.
he could have been. Yeah, had he lived. But then after that fight, we get uh, a lot of character drama,
Lot of character
basically.
drama.
Yep, with Kishimoto no longer wanting to stay with Kei, wanting to be with Kato, and they end up having a fight. She left. She started living out on the streets, and then that's where you started to see the dichotomy of Kei wanting to live for the fight and get back into that battle,
Mm-hmm.
partially to be able to see her, but also because he just doesn't know how to control his emotions and wanted to just hit something, while Kato was thinking, I never want to go back. I'm trying to make a life for myself and my little brother, and that's who he's fighting for.
Welcome back, Rico. By the way, we finished up the Tanaka fight, and we're now kind of like the in between for the Buddha. Wait, what did they call that alien? I can't. That was one I didn't. I wasn't able to get back to it. But it wasn't the Buddha alien. It was something else. Because
It was let's see.
Hey Rico, give a sound test really quick.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
All right.
Could also see up your nostrils.
Son of a bisco.
It's just referred to as the Buddhist Temple Alien Mission.
Uh, okay. Well, while Rico sorts his life out, you want to give more description? I'll look it up really quick. Because I'm on that page in the manga right now.
Yeah, so all the main protagonists end up going back to the room with the black sphere, and that's when we get introduced to a new group of individuals, one of whom reminds me of a super militant like weekend warrior dude
The
who's
fat
dressed
guy.
up in all camo. Yeah, he's extremely overweight and he's just grabbing the guns and thinks this is the coolest thing in the world.
It was
We
Berserk
have
Alien and Ill-Tempered Alien because it was about the two
oh,
statues. That
there
was
you
the
go.
main mission.
Then we have Laura Croft,
Yeah,
who makes
I
a
was
cameo
totally
in the
gonna say that
series.
she's fucking Laura Croft. Like,
I mean, you could see it in one of the covers that they have.
yeah.
She's holding the gun, everything, spitty image, perfect pose. Yeah. So they knew what they were doing, and I'm pretty sure, spoiler alert, she died in this arc purely because they didn't want to have to pay out the fees from the lawsuit. So,
I can see that.
uh,
I personally think it's more for character development for for Kay, and that definitely goes into the end of the mission. So we won't touch that just yet.
fair. And uh, there's a sniper
Oh, the
that's in this
sniper,
mission
dude!
who's in the
Pour one
army
out
that
for that homie. He was the
there
coolest.
was. You had JJ, who was the black belt martial artist.
Yup.
And then you have the Buddhist priest who is trying to convince everybody when Kato takes over the room and he starts trying to tell people what's going on, why they need to be prepared, what's coming up for them. The priest steps in and says, "This is the waiting room between heaven and hell, and what you do here determines where you go. And if you want to go to heaven, you need to ignore what he's saying over here, and you just need to sit down and pray to the Buddhist gods, and then they'll ship you off." And it was really interesting because as people started to leave the room, you could see that he was saying, "Oh, see, they didn't listen, they weren't
Yep.
praying, and so now they're going to hell." And then everybody disappears except for the priest, and he starts freaking out, wondering why he's the only one left, and he doesn't even believe what he was saying at that point because none of this made sense. And then he ended up going back to Tokyo after that point when he was transferred into the mission, and it was neat to see how he kept his beliefs all the way through the mission when he started praying in front of this giant Buddha statue, and he's like, "See, as long as I'm praying, he won't attack me," and then he just gets mushed. So
And I
at
just
least the
want to say,
dude stuck to his convictions.
I would just like to say, if you haven't read Gantz, just Google Buddhist temple guardians. They are the coolest design. They are the most metal statues ever.
They are, and we also have this is the first glimpse into seeing Kay being like a real badass the whole time because he's so upset that Kisimoto moved out. She's not talking to him, that she's now with Kato, and he just wants something to hit. And so when he sees the giant Buddha statue standing in front of him, he just goes full on berserk mode and just starts diving through his legs. He shoots off both of his feet, takes out both of his arms, and then blows the thing's head off. And everybody's thinking he's just hot shit, and he's the new hot veteran, and things don't work out for him as the
But the
mission
problem with
progresses.
that the problem with that though is if you see his character go through there where he sees himself as this hero, but he's not doing heroic actions. He's
No.
pushing the other characters away. He's telling them he's overly cocky. He gets one of the newbies killed by that first one. And he doesn't seem to bat an eye. Like, in fact, he was, if I remember, he said something along the lines of, "It wasn't my fault. He should have listened." And it's interesting when you see how the chapter ends, where that there's the 180 that just happens in him. So as we move forward, there's a big battle with the two guardians, and the team actually becomes a team. and rallies up against him. And you almost get like this really cool kind of like Avengers moment where you see like all the dudes just fighting everybody and like just kicking the bad guy's ass. And then
And you even have the people who don't have the suits on, like
get on it. Yeah.
Juno, the sniper Juzo, yeah,
Yeah.
and then JJ the black belt. Like they're taking people out, even though they don't. Juzo took a
Human
rifle,
strength.
admittedly.
Yeah.
But yeah, JJ's just beating down these statues with his bare hands, which was pretty impressive.
Oh, that was that was because more statues came out of the temple. They're pretty much like the terracotta warriors from China, like bronze essentially, and he's just going to town on them. Now, I just watched the movie, so this scene's a little messy in my head. Do they walk into the temple and that's when they find the 100-armed Buddha, or it was the 10-armed Buddha, or was that, or did it come out?
Yeah, they walked into the temple because after they defeat the two giant
Sadako
statues,
and the model went in there with JJ, and somebody else went in there with them, if I remember correctly.
there was somebody else.
There was another girl.
It was the karate dude.
Yeah, it was the karate dude,
Nah.
and then there was another woman.
The model. It was the model, the stalker, the two guys that knew each other, and then the karate guy.
Yep.
Then the karate guy goes up to one of them, starts trying to do his thing, and then gets his arm broke, and then it just goes off the rails from there.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and that's when you get to that old school first edition Dungeons and Dragons, because rocks fall when the boss ends up showing his face. What was the final kill count from just the boss alone?
98% of the team.
Yeah.
What I wondered about that final boss, because it was able to like switch its heads in order to continue living. Like you knock down one head of the Hydra to grow in its place. It was the basic thing that was happening there. And he had that little, it looked like a chronograph, some sort of timekeeping device on its hand. It seemed like if you were able to destroy that device, you would have been able to destroy the armor, but because that was never being interacted with, it kept coming back to life and it kept reforming no matter who was hitting it or who was fighting it at the time. So that was a really neat trick for it. I feel like it was hinted towards the whole time, but never outright said, and I thought that was a really fun mechanic of the bad guy.
They alluded to it very early, because I think it was after. Was it when Laura Croft shot it? That was the first one that actually did damage to it, and then it just kind of like it did. They did a mini. It was a smaller panel, but there was a panel that came in and kind of like zoomed on it, and you could see like the whoosh sign, like it was doing the. But just the weapons on that boss were ridiculous. Not only did most arms contain knives and stabbing equipment of some sort, there was also the Eye of Agamotto, a lantern laser beam, and a
acid pot.
And what do they call it? A bag of acid, an infinite bag of acid. And so you kind of get like this door shut scene, and the A team, which is Kay, Laura Croft, and a couple of the other people, they're kind of in their battle, and then they go in to see what's going on with the B side, and all you come into is, as the book put it, Homo and Homo Stalker embracing each other because they got melted
and kissing.
Oh yeah,
so
and they were
really
kissing.
He was bisexual. Apparently, they just didn't. And I guess it was really the era that this book was when it came out.
This was what, early 2000s.
Yeah, so homosexuality still wasn't cool at that point. Every woman in the series is just viewed as an object. So there's a lot of just very time-sensitive cultural references that you saw all throughout this series. And so that was pretty interesting to see that it was very dated in that way.
So when the A team gets in there and finds everybody just utterly wrecked, then we go to their battle with them, where A team gets absolutely wrecked. when I told you guys when we were getting into this, that I wasn't kidding when I said Oku said hold my beer to Game of Thrones, because everybody is dead. We're even Kato and Kishimoto cacked it in that one, and I think Kishimoto was melted, wasn't she?
She stepped
Yeah.
in front of the
Yep.
acid urn to stop Kato from getting just split in half, basically. And so she died instantly. And then Kay lost both an arm and a leg in that
Yep.
battle, which he just apparently did not bleed out at all from the acid, which I thought was really weird because it took off his leg, but he had no blood from it. It just continued slowly disintegrating. Whereas everybody else, if it cut them in half, like Kishimoto or the model and his stalker girl, there was a giant pool of blood that surrounded them. So he had
Did
some
it
pretty thick plot armor for that one.
fair? Did it was that the one where they ended up shooting his leg to stop the
Yeah.
bleeding? Okay.
Yeah, it was to stop the acid from eating through his
Mhm.
body. But again, there was no blood until they used the blaster on his leg. So plot armor was real.
Fair. But yeah, definitely one of the more intense. Like, it was the most intense of the fights in the series to this point. Almost something you would end a series on, in a sense.
I mean, that was my assumption when I was reading through this arc, was this was the end. I wouldn't have thought that this went on for another 300 chapters.
Right. And then so luckily, however, Kay ends up getting the win. He did the human bullet into the no, that was the big Buddha, right? He did like a human bullet move.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the big Buddha. For
How did he defeat the main boss?
Kay did not defeat the main
Kato
boss.
did.
Yeah,
Oh,
Kato
yeah, it
defeated
was.
him because he got his arm chopped off while he was holding one of its swords, and then he chopped off its arms and its head. And as it was dying, it shot its tail through his chest, and so
Yep.
Kato died before the mission was over.
Yeah, and then you get the scene where Kay realizes nobody made it. He was the lone survivor, and he even he pulled a gun on Gantz, didn't he?
He did. I really think you should have shot him and see what happens.
I thought he did.
No, he just threatens it and then walks away.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
He wanted to
remembering
see
that
the
wrong.
body count.
Yeah, but it's like that was when I first read through that many years ago. That was like the most intense shit I had ever seen in a comic. I was like, that is, because it wasn't common back in that time for comic books or even books regular to just murder main characters like they were nothing. So that was one hell of an intense scene when initially, like through the eyes back in the time. But yeah, even still now, it still kind of gets me like, oof, that is a rough one. And as the homework stated for them, we were ending the kind of reading assignment on the chapter alone, which is 91, and that's kind of where he's trying to figure out what to do because he is alone and everything. And now, I know you guys read further. Did they go to another hunt? Did they start another mission yet?
Yeah, he did the one by himself.
Okay, I don't think Hunter got to that point.
No,
yet.
I have not got to that one yet. No.
Oh, just you're very very
So
close.
there's a spoiler.
It's not it's a bit of a spoiler, but
I mean, the series came out like 20 years ago, so
it's true. But yeah, no, the like leading up to it is where it's gonna get a little interesting. As weird as this sounds, the story really starts at around 200-ish. That's when shit starts popping off, and I'm really excited to get talking to that because that's the stuff that was all new to me, and like I want to talk about the Osaka arc so bad because it is just bonkers beyond belief. So I think we'll call it there unless you guys got something else to say.
I think the only thing I have is just before my power went off. Would be just that again. I think what you'll see, and as we continue reading on, at least with Kai, is that one point I see where he starts wanting to go back into the room. He wants to go back to the apartment. Like that's where he felt alive. And by the end of the mission, his whole attitude and everything changed because now he's alone. It's like nobody.
He almost gets
And
humanized
I guess
in a
it's
sense.
one of
Like
the things.
he
Say
goes
what?
from like being a superhero to being humanized, where he has to like almost has to like live with like just think of his own mortality at that point.
Yeah, because I mean, his whole thing, at least the way it seemed was just the fact that he wanted to be the big man on campus,
Mm-hmm.
and that compared to Kato, it's always the thing of like, I know I'm good as him or I'm better than him, and then once he got with Angelina Jolie, just his out, even though he still wanted to be. So and really, with those turn events of her dying and everybody else going, it's one of those things where at least at the very end he admitted that he wanted Kato with him.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, he didn't go there. So I am kind of intrigued if somehow he's gonna, I guess, link up with his brother and be somewhere because that was the whole thing. Kato is like, don't let him be by himself and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. So
Oh yeah, we all have to pour one out because unfortunately Kay did lose her virginity in this set of chapters. So that's a character that will never come back.
We're pouring one out for
the only thing I have
Kayla's
left is
virginity,
just
but not Kato dying and leaving his little brother with that awful human being that they call their aunt.
Yeah, I know, right? No,
You
he
got
would
weird
no, because
priorities.
okay, that's one thing I have to. I think if I'm remembering this wrong, which I could be. Most of the time when you rent an apartment in like say Japan or Korea, you're actually paying for the full year up front. That's why he said he was saving up for it. So if I remember correctly, they had already moved into the house at that point.
No, he had rented it, but they hadn't moved in. They were moving in next week.
Oh shit. Okay.
yeah, but there was a spot where he was. Oh, so he wasn't. They weren't
He,
sleeping in
They
the
weren't
no,
room yet.
living
he
there yet.
he he
Okay.
woke up in the middle of the night, saw that Kato wasn't there, and then he ran out the door. And his piece of shit aunt was like, "If you run out the door, I'm locking it behind you." And he ran to the apartment, and the neighbor was telling him that nobody lives there.
That's why.
That's what it was. Okay. But yeah, no, technically they would have that apartment for the entire year. Which I
Gotcha.
personally think is a weird setup, but that's a different topic. Yeah, let me just give you
Yeah, I mean,
let me just pay your mortgage for a year in one fell swoop.
besides that, the only thing I had left to say was just on this was just the same thing before. I hope they explain the whole weapons and armor because,
Mm-hmm.
like we saw, the bike gang leader did bring back a gun. He did use it once. Nobody stopped him, and then when he went to go
Ah,
use it again,
yes. I wanted to say
he
something
gets
about
killed.
that.
And then it's like
So I
that
think
didn't
I
make no
know.
sense. And then I'm like, okay, if you're so worried about the word going out, how do you explain the recovery? Does it automatically get teleported back to the scene?
So I have
Goes back to the weapons. Are they more alien than anything else? Because Kato did find out that he can do a homing net,
mhm.
similar to like Predator, where you can fire it off and it went off him.
So I think I have
I talked
a
about the
theory to
fact
go with
that
that. So do you remember in the
Mhm.
at the end of the Onion mission how the dead bodies are heads popped?
Yeah,
So I think it's kind of like that where like they have the bomb in their brain and everything, but like so the cleanup is literally just destroying the evidence. So that also leads me into when he killed the dude he owed money to, there was nobody else around to see him. That's why he didn't nothing happened. When he tried to kill the biker gangs though, he was trying to use the gun in that public area with all those eyes around him. That was a red flag and that's what got him killed. So I'm thinking like most likely
gotcha.
the weapon will self-destruct. Leave
Okay.
no trace
And
behind.
that's why I also believe. Well, besides that, like with the weapons and stuff, I think that gun. I guess there's one theory on them. But I think they're still alien origin. But I know once we get to the third, is it the third fight? No, fourth fight. I think that's what it is. That's where we'll be leading up to. Um, that's what I believe. I think it goes back to the whole TV show entertainment. Somebody has to be giving this, and I think there's somebody else higher up on that part. But um, the only thing I got is just the alien, the one at the end, the Buddha one, where he eats the guy's brain
Mm-hmm.
and he starts talking. It goes
Oh,
back to
that
the same thing.
yeah.
Like, how do you know? How do you know? They're they're the bad guys because he's telling them like, look, we just want to live in peace. You're the ones who are attacking us
Mm-hmm.
and everything else. Which I thought was kind of creepy. Like dudes literally eat his brains, and all of a sudden that was it. So I think that with the aliens to keep fighting, I think we're gonna see more of a increase in intelligence, strength. Um, I don't want to say this other part because Hunter hasn't got to it, but something else. So I don't know. I'm hoping that it gets a little bit better with how they do these missions because right now they're just how do you call it cannon fodder. It's like, hey, go fight, and you got like again it goes back to the entertainment thing. Like, what is the exact mission other than going after these guys? Like, there's nothing. I guess that's what frustrates me. There's nothing to gain from it. It's like doing a looter shooter. If I'm going in this dungeon, why am I going in here? If I'm not getting
Mm-hmm.
no good rewards, it's a waste of time if I'm not gaining experience or anything else like that.
Okay.
So yeah, because my other note since Hunter didn't see it, yeah. So
Yeah, which we can save that because that's actually that's a good there's a good chunk of chapters coming up. I think I know which one to stop at. I'll need to do a little bit of digging tomorrow, and I'll text you guys what chapter to stop at. If you want to go further, by all means. But just to keep kind of everybody in the same area. But
All
yeah,
right.
if nobody's else has
I'm
anything,
gonna go to 200 if possible. I mean,
I,
depending on when we're gonna do this again.
all right, fair enough, fair enough. But
When's the
yeah,
next time?
we'll say that again. Sorry.
When's the next time we're gonna do this?
Um, what's your schedule like, Hunter? You could always do next week or the week after. I know we got Christmas coming up soon, so we'll probably won't have anything for that, obviously.
Yeah, I'd be down for either of those. Just
Okay.
let me know.
Yeah,
I should be
we'll
free.
figure it out. We'll set a
Gotcha.
chapter goal and just kind of go with that. All
Okay,
right.
sounds good.
All right, perfect. Well, if there's nothing else, everybody who watches this, probably all like two people who end up stumbling upon it, we have been the Nerdverse Odyssey, and we thank you for your time.
Later.
Take it
Appreciate it.
easy.